Hello, hope you're all well and thank you for tuning into this Future of Diversity event today. I'm Michaela Jefferson, news editor at Mediatel News, and I'm very excited to be chairing this excellent panel with three of our rising stars in this industry and future media leaders. This one will be a little bit different from some of the other panels that we've had today, because although we will probably touch on diversity and inclusion a little bit, we're really here to discuss the future of media. So I'm joined by Mihir Haria-Shah, who is head of broadcast at behavioural planning and buying agency Total Media, Louise Twycross-Lewis, who is head of insights at PhD Media, and Akama Davies, director of global solutions and innovation at Xaxis, which is the programmatic arm of WPP's Group M, not Group N. So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us today. To start, I just want to give you all a chance to introduce yourselves properly, explain your day jobs, and maybe also address how your day job has evolved and had to adapt in this current climate and in lockdown. So Louise, let's start with you.
Hi, Michaela. I head up the Insight team at PhD, and my team is all about putting consumer understanding at the heart of what we do at the agency through research and thought leadership. I actually started my current job in lockdown, so remote working is all I know at PhD so far. I was in denial for a few weeks. I was working in the beanbag in the corner over here for a couple of weeks before I realised that wasn't going to be a long-term solution. So from a client point of view, in terms of how we're working with them and how that has changed, obviously, as you know, COVID-19 has been the biggest pause button on consumers' lives that we've ever seen. And it's created a change in demand patterns that's been really difficult for brands. Some have had demand temporarily paused, others have had it significantly increased. But for whatever client along that scale, keeping on top of those changes of consumer attitude and behaviour has become the biggest way to help them adapt and inform their decision making, and that's where my team comes in.
Great. Mihir, how about you?
So hi, I'm Mihir. As Michaela mentioned, I'm head of broadcast at Total Media. What that means is that my team looks after all the planning and buying of TV, radio, cinema, out of home and video on demand for all of our clients in the agency. My role specifically is kind of overseeing the strategy and the kind of commercial impact that all of our activity has. Due to COVID-19, I would say that my role has maybe gone backwards a little bit in terms of I'm getting more involved in some of the day-to-day work while some of my team is on furlough, which has been quite refreshing, but also really interesting, going back to kind of buying TV campaigns and things like that. Things I haven't done for a few years, but really exciting because I guess it's the bread and butter of my day job. As an agency, kind of the move to working from home has been really seamless for us. We were lucky that we moved offices. We moved to Soho about 18 months ago, and when we moved offices, we moved to a more agile working function, so everyone was geared up to work from home anyway. So that's actually worked out quite well for us. And personally, I'm quite lucky as well. My dad's office is down the road from my house, and it's been empty, so I've been coming here, which makes it feel like I am in the working environment.
Oh, it sounds great. And Akama, how about you?
Hi everyone. So Akama Davies, I'm a co-founder of a diversity and inclusion group called We Are Stripes. I'm also director global solutions and innovation at Xaxis. So essentially what we do is look at some of the big strategic innovations and channels that are going to make an impact from clients in the near term, but also in the long term. Remote working and COVID-19 was a bit of an interesting one for us because obviously we're a global team. So we actually saw a lot of the impact happening to the Asia Pacific markets before it hit a lot of the Western markets. Overall, we are split across different locales and different regions. So at the global level, we're in London, New York, Amsterdam. So we were quite familiar with video conference and dynamic working from home, etc. Probably the biggest adjustment for me during this working period was I was actually due to be seconded to the APAC team to be based in Singapore from April. So just about 4 days before I was due to fly, obviously lockdown happened at that end. And then shortly after that happened at this end. So it's been really interesting leading and managing a team remotely on a different time zone when you haven't actually met them in person. So a lot of new skills have had to be developed, a lot of interesting challenges, and really trying to build that connection and that rapport all through digital technologies or through video conferences. It's been successful, but it's been certainly different to how we would have planned to do it in other circumstances.
Do you work with clients directly in your role?
We do for the marquee clients on certain specific briefs. So the top 15 or so global clients will work on very specific integrated campaigns, or if they're looking to, for example, Ford, if they're looking to roll out a new integrated programmatic channel, then we'll work closely with them, because often it's the first time that they may have adopted a technology, or it's the first time that the technology has been used at scale in market as well.
So are you finding that you're giving them any different advice than you would be normally?
Yeah, certainly. So we've actually split into two different tracks, and like every year we hold a global innovation competition open to everyone in the company. And usually we say in about 18 months you have an X investment target that you need to hit across this innovation. Actually, we've had to almost pivot. So we've had to go for very near-term solutions that can be activated very quickly for clients. And then a lot of the long-term stuff is focused specifically on recovery. So ways in which we can allow clients to be more evidence-based in terms of how they're planning, how they're using a number of different channels. We've done a lot of research in the downtime, because we've worked closely with partners on the infrastructure about things like mapping offline activity to online, and then looking at how we activate as well. So it has, I would say, pivoted our outlook to being very immediate, or almost looking into 2021 and beyond.
Cool. Mihir, how about you, from a planner's perspective? Is your advice for clients different now in this period?
I actually find that our role as an agency has changed quite a bit for clients, and it's really kind of evolved. And I think the clients are seeking a kind of deeper engagement with their agencies now, and beyond just media planning and buying, and a bit more consultative approach. So we have an in-house consulting arm, Behave, which has actually seen growth in the time that we've been in lockdown, which is quite rare to say. And it's because clients want agencies to give them advice from kind of top to bottom, looking at new products and new lines and things like that, beyond just doing the media planning and buying for them. In terms of what my team's been doing for clients, again, one of the few broadcast media to really thrive in this lockdown and COVID-19 phase has been TV. And everyone at home is watching loads of TV. Lots of advertisers pulled out, so TV market's become really cheap for the advertisers that can be on air. So we've still been having a lot of conversations with clients. We've had some proactive spend come in that wasn't in our forecast initially. So actually, it's been quite a busy time for my team, and we've been speaking to clients maybe more so than we normally would.
And Louise, how about you? I imagine that consumer behaviours are changing so much at the moment. You must have quite a lot going on from the insight side of things.
Yeah, we're definitely really busy. I think interesting, when I first started, I think a lot of people were saying, oh well, maybe it's going to be a quiet time for you to kind of like immerse yourself in the agency and get settled in. It hasn't been that at all. You're absolutely right. As I said before about changes in consumer demand, if some of our clients have had an influx of new customers, they're wanting to understand who they are, what they're doing, how they can retain them in the future, what that means for their business moving on. And for those clients who have had a temporary pause in their activities, they obviously want to keep track on what their customers are doing in the meantime, and what they will do once things start to return back to normal. So definitely for us, there's a lot of questions about consumer behaviour and what it means for them.
So, okay, so you guys, we've brought you here today because you are people who we see as being future leaders in this industry, rising stars, people who have made a real impact in your respective fields in the time that you've been working, despite maybe not being quite so far along in your career. What barriers or obstacles have you faced, do you think, in your progress through your careers so far, and how have you mastered them? Louise, I'll start again with you.
I think one of the barriers can be yourself, whether that's inferiority complexes, doubting your capabilities or abilities to do certain you know, I would say there have been many times where certain opportunities have come my way and I'd be really analytical and stressing over whether I could take additional things on. But about 2 or 3 years ago, I was recovering from some health issues. And once all of that was out of the way and sorted, I kind of made a vow for that year to say yes to every single work-related opportunity that landed in my lap. And one, it made for an incredibly busy year, but two, it was just something I would never have done before. I realised that not only was I able and capable to take on and juggle way more things than I previously thought, but I was good at it and I really enjoyed it. And so I think the one thing I really learned from that experience is, you know, if you want something, go for it, deal with whatever it throws along the way. Those difficulties you anticipated may arise, but they may not. And, you know, you can handle it.
Mihir, how about you?
Yeah, I think what Louise has said is really kind of valid, particularly picking up things that you really want to do and taking every opportunity you can. I would say actually my biggest barrier to that, and my biggest barrier in the early days of my career, was actually the lack of understanding of what a career in media meant for a lot of the people around me outside of work. So whether it be like family or friends, because they didn't really know anyone else that had worked in a career in media. I think we'll come on to a bit more diversity things later, which is relevant to this. And when you don't kind of have I've got an amazing support network outside of work and all, but when you don't have that, people taking active interest in your work, it can sometimes get disheartening. But then I use that as to kind of channel, oh, I really want to make an impact. I really want to make a difference within this industry, but also to make it seem like a more viable career path for other people as well. And that's kind of really spurred me on to achieve some of the things that I've done and to continue working with people in the way that I have done over the past few years, I guess.
Okay, great. And Akama, how about you?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what's been said before, in particular what Mihir was saying about having people that kind of look like you, or you can associate with, or you have that same connection with as well. A big reason as to which we set up We Are Stripes is to actually help that, to almost feel like you're represented, people from your communities and from your networks actually part of your industry, and seeing them thrive and actually bringing each other along through your careers as well, which is I guess a macro barrier, but it's something that as an obstacle, working hard along with many others as well, including Louise and Mihir, to help solve that. Personally, in my career, probably the biggest barrier that I faced, particularly at my time at, well, AOL/Verizon, was just change. Over that period of time, the organization changed a phenomenal amount. So within a space of 3 months, we grew by 66%, which is unprecedented, really. And with that, you get a lot of attrition, you get a lot of changes of direction, leadership as well. So probably the biggest learning I used to overcome that was to almost see that disruption as opportunity. So really looking at, with your skill set, with your talents, how can you help push the business forward, but how can you develop yourself? And throughout that time, almost having to reinvent myself. So originally being an account trader, using programmatic tools, then agency facing, and then into product and innovation. So actually using all of those different periods, which I think oftentimes you can sometimes question whether you're in the right environment or whether you're in the right space to try and find a new avenue and direction for your career.
Well, look, you guys have kind of mentioned it a little bit already, and obviously this event today is about, you know, the future of diversity. It's in response to the Black Lives Matter movement. So I'm curious on your thoughts. How do you think our industry, the media and advertising industries, is doing when it comes to diversity and inclusion? And, you know, what do you think needs to change? And Cameron, let's come back to you.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think first thing I kind of say about the question is, I think diversity and inclusion, it's a ever evolving thing, right? So even with maturity, I think Black Lives Matter has really highlighted that, because even the companies that were leading the way in terms of diversity and inclusion maybe weren't looking at anti-racism. So we can see that actually as society evolves, so do we as an ad industry. I think overall, I think the stats speak for themselves. It's not great. It's not where I think many of us would like it to be. If we often compare it to certain industries which we would see as more traditional and maybe more developed than us, so like the laws, a lot of the sciences, even if we look at government as well. We did some work with the civil service, and you look at the level of policies that they have and protocols and process, it's streets ahead of it. I probably would say what we need to do to kind of bridge that gap, comparing our industry to others, is actually just really treating the diversity initiatives with the same robust attitude that we treat any other part of our business. Like, it's always that question is, if a client asks us to do it, we'd move heaven and earth in order to deliver it. So we just need to do ourselves that same justice.
Okay, I love that. Mihir, did you have anything to add?
I mean, that was put so succinctly that I'm not sure I can add to that, but no, I definitely can. I think as an industry, we are, particularly this industry, we're built on our people, and we have amazing talent in this industry. And it seems like, as Akama said, that diversity is an incredibly complex space. And as an industry, we're so progressive in some spaces, but until recently, racial diversity was kind of the elephant in the room. It's well documented, the statistics, that actually at entry level, we're reasonably representative as an industry. If we look at it nationally as opposed to just London. But when you get to the senior management levels, it's just the representation is so poor. And it's something that everyone's known about for a long period of time. But until now, I feel like there hasn't really been any conversation around addressing how we're actually going to change this. It's great to see that so many senior leaders have got involved in saying they're going to actually look to make actionable change and things like that. So I also have to say there's some amazing organisations that have built. So obviously Akama's talked about the project that he started. There's also Media for All, and it's really great to see that there's so many kind of mentorship schemes that are really helping people of ethnic minority backgrounds really try and thrive in their careers and not drop out at the mid-management levels that seems to happen, that statistics show at the moment.
I wonder as well, obviously you live and breathe broadcast, including TV. What do you think about, from the advertising side, about how the kind of creativity that this industry produces?
Yeah. So if we're talking about the advertising side and talking about the representation of ethnic minorities in adverts, I think Lloyds Banking Group did a study last year, potentially the year before, and what it found is that actually representation of BAME communities had over doubled since 2015 to I think 2018. But the issue that we're still seeing is that actors of ethnic minorities were never playing the lead roles in those adverts. They were always kind of often playing on stereotypes as well, which is equally damaging. So you would have the Asian man being a shopkeeper, for example, and things like that, which is playing on stereotypes. So whilst it is being normalised that ethnic minorities are being seen more in mainstream media, which is a great step. It needs to go further than that, and it needs to stop being stereotypes. It needs to be kind of lead roles and all those sorts of things. So it is progressing in the right direction, but there's still kind of more work that needs to be done. And again, I think the Black Lives Matter movement has really brought this to light, and hopefully we'll see a lot of change going forward. A lot of the big broadcasters that have pledged significant amounts of money to change the DNA of their companies, but also to support independent and diverse kind of producers and actors.
Absolutely. Louise, what do you think on this?
Yeah, just drawing on what Mihir was just saying, yeah, definitely in terms of representation, it's still a novelty. So even though, and I think we can see it has doubled, but because we're still getting excited, or campaigns that feature like more diverse audiences are still creating controversies, shows that it's absolutely nowhere near the norm. So there's still a lot of work to be done, both in the advertising that's out there and behind the scenes as well. And there's so much evidence out there that's been around for some time that shows that, you know, where diversity is concerned, you know, we are nowhere near where we should be, from the IPA, the advertising industry task force, media owners like Reach have also got research which draws on the same themes. And drawing on Akama's point, yeah, there's definitely been acknowledgement in the past that there is a diversity gap, but I think there is inaction because there is this kind of perception that it wasn't occurring in those organisations. There's a professor called Bina Kandola who's done a lot of work on modern racism in the workplace. So that's specifically focusing on ethnicity. But what was really interesting is when he was writing that book and speaking to lots of people across different organisations, he said every Caucasian person that he spoke to didn't believe racism was occurring in their organisation. And so that big perception that it's not happening in my house, I think has been really changed by events and Black Lives Matter, which is good. I think it's really highlighted how far behind we are, and not just on ethnicity. There are obviously wider discussions, but as Mihir is saying that, ethnicity or racism was definitely the biggest taboo in the room, and there was a lot of reliance on easier conversations, particularly around gender. I think gender diversity was one of the kind of like the go-to story for a couple of years, but now I think we're kind of seeing that evolve as organisations reevaluate where they stand and how they can work towards actual change.
Akama, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just to echo Louise, like race was always seen as the elephant in the room, and I think what's been interesting, obviously Black Lives Matter has been running since about 2014, but this cycle of it, one is that everyone was consuming more content than ever before because of lockdown. I think two, in terms of my personal perspective, I think that everyone had taken personal sacrifices to preserve life, and then you saw a series of incidences of where life was taken so violently. And then I think three, there's been a narrative now where like the position of silence is no longer tenable. So as Louise was saying, organizations saying, well, actually, no, we're all right. It's like, no, that's one, you're probably not. You need to really, really evaluate, and everyone has their own homework to do. And two, just being not being racist is no longer good enough. You have to actually be actively anti-racist and really, really pushing that narrative of allyship that honestly, at least in kind of my time working in D&I, I haven't seen that level of allyship and that level of commitment since what we've seen over the past few weeks.
So it's ultimately, has it been positive then, would you say, the conversation over the few weeks?
I would say the conversation's been positive. I think the commitment's been positive. I think there is still work to do on some of the direction because execution at this stage is going to be pivotal, because a lot of organizations have made huge commitments very publicly, and we need to get those right because there's a lot invested in it. And I think a lot of people will be discouraged if after this fact, a year or 5 years time, we're still in the same spot. So really now, and also as well, a lot of the ownership is on senior leaders. It's not on employee resource groups. It's not on HR. It's on the CEOs. So that strategy and that execution plan needs to be really, really robust and really committed, and actually really have the longevity in order to fulfill some of those huge, huge promises and commitments.
Okay, great. Let's look a little bit at the future. I want to know, what is one industry trend or innovation that you are most excited by? Mihir, what's yours?
Because TV is my bread and butter, I'm going to have to talk about kind of the future of TV space and the connected TV world. I think the convergence of TV and data is fascinating. It means that TV can kind of it can still have the power of its brand building and reach, but it can be more innovative. You can be highly targeted with plans. It opens up kind of a whole new world to TV and new spaces for clients to play in. Clients that previously couldn't afford mass TV campaigns have now got an entry point where they can either they don't have to deal with the wastage that TV sometimes delivers, and they can reach exactly their target audience. They can use the things like the AVOD services to be like a bit more contextual than they can be on, say, linear TV and all those sorts of things. So definitely for me, the connected TV space is so exciting. TV is the kind of media that you think wouldn't change over a 10-year period. I've been in this industry for 6.5 years, and it's probably the media that has experienced the most change in that period of time. So really, really exciting, great opportunity for advertisers and agencies and also publishers as well to to get their content out there.
And as part of that, we're seeing quite a lot of new advertisers to TV, right? Like a lot more D2C brands, and that's kind of because of the connected TV stations.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I should have said this. That connected TV is basically TV is very much seen as top of the marketing funnel in terms of building reach and kind of awareness at the earlier stage. But what connected TV has done is it's moved TV as a function a bit further down the funnel, and that's why you get kind of a D2C advertisers. It's when people are in more of a mindset to actually buy or consider a product as opposed to just being made aware of it. So I think the connected TV space has really kind of moved TV, well, not moved, it's added TV to another layer of the funnel.
Great. Okay, and Louise, what are you most excited about?
It's not a new innovation, but I feel like I have a newfound appreciation for the benefits of virtual reality post-lockdown. So you know how Rory Sutherland's talked a lot about how video conferencing has been around for ages, but the conditions to make that behaviour attractive were missing. And it wasn't until the pandemic, which created those conditions, that activity became valuable to consumers. And so I feel surely VR has the scope to do exactly the same, because if lockdowns, distancing and shielding are to become a recurring feature in our lives, then maybe using VR to connect us with experiences without leaving the house is the way to go. So, you know, if I could put a headset on and go on a virtual holiday, be on the beach in Brazil, or a shopping spree in Anthropology, or front row seats to see Hamilton, and do that within this room, that'd be like amazing, because I found lockdown pretty boring.
Yeah, do you know what? I would have said I was quite skeptical of VR before and about how useful it was going to be, but since coronavirus, I absolutely would love to be able to pretend I'm on a beach right now. Akama, how about you? What are you excited about?
Yeah, I think it's not, well, I would say it's a trend that keeps on popping up, particularly in the programmatic space. It's just around creativity and really bringing creativity and programmatic together. I know obviously DCO, every single organization and probably every single person in the industry, if you ask them what DCO is, they probably give you a different answer. But I think for years and years, you've almost had a focus on AI and data. You've always had inventory. But if you were to ask like many programmatic traders, what about the creative? You probably don't look at it because of the means and the tools of which we're trading it. And the creative is very much ancillary. But actually, the biggest trend that we're seeing now, and we're investing a lot of our time and research, is actually leading with the creative in order to drive performance. So either be that conversational agents within the shopping experience, either be that voice agents or interactive elements, that convergence between e-commerce and the shoppable experience in social platforms, or actually elsewhere online as well. And actually now more channels are starting to become fully integrated into programmatic, audio, digital out of home as well. It now means we have to be more thoughtful and more deliberate about the creative, because we really are relying on it to drive that performance, and as well as the selection of inventory, as well as the use of data and AI.
Great. Okay. How about then? We might have covered this slightly already with the obstacles question earlier, but maybe you've got something different to add to this. What has been the most valuable lesson that you've learned in your career so far that maybe other people can stand to gain something from too? Louise, how about you?
I would say don't beat yourself up when your career goals or your journey to your career goals take a different path to what you expected. I think the reality is that path is often a straight line rather than I think it's just really important to work out what's to you at a particular point in time. Decide what that best course of action is for you. It might be training, it might be finding a new job, it might be staying in your current role, but work out what that best decision is for you at that point in time. Be confident in that decision, and beat yourself up if things don't go as you planned them originally.
I think that's quite a generational thing now, isn't it? That a lot of younger people, we don't have a straight career path, and sometimes I think you can feel like you're falling off the path that you think you should be on. But I think you're absolutely right, Louise. That's great. That's a great lesson to have learned. Mihir, how about you?
Yeah, I think following on from that, it's the perfect segue into what I was going to say. That I would say follow your passion points and do something that really aligns with your interests, because naturally it will become easier for you to maintain an interest in it and really kind of put your all into it. It's so easy to say that work hard, because anyone can work hard, really. The reason I say this is because my career started off in the insurance industry. I was on the graduate scheme at one of the biggest insurers in Europe. And it all made sense because my family business was my dad and my uncle had an insurance broker. So naturally, I was going to learn my trade and go in and take over that family business. But after 2 years on the grad scheme, I realised it wasn't for me. And at the time, I was just interested in Twitter and what they did. I used it a lot as a social networking tool. So I spoke to a cousin that worked there, and she started off for a media agency. I applied to a few media agencies, got offered the role in the TV team at MEC or Wavemaker, and I've never looked back since. And that purely came from an interest point. Similarly, now, whilst broadcast is very much my focus, the connected TV and the future of TV world has been the thing that has really kind of gripped me with interest, and that's started from talking about SPOD services with friends inside and outside of work, people asking if anyone actually watches TV anymore. And I've just focused on that area as my real kind of area of expertise alongside my day job. And that's where my career has really excelled. So I would say focus on a passion point or an interest, and hopefully that's where you can thrive.
That's great advice. Akama, how about you?
Yeah, I think it was a phrase that I heard really early on in my career, but almost like a point that was quite challenging, and it really stuck with me. And it was quite simply, pressure makes diamonds. And I think oftentimes I almost I felt anxiety around high pressure situations or putting yourself forward for stuff, or that having that level of self-belief to, okay, if I'm put in this scenario, how will I cope? How will I deal with it? But actually, if you change that mindset and really learn to kind of embrace it and enjoy the pressure of doing something or the pressure of delivery, it means that, again, you're going to enjoy your work a lot more. It means that ultimately your output's going to be better. And it really does just change how you open yourself up to new opportunities. So you're more likely to try something that you haven't done before or take a different risk because you start to almost fuel yourself of, okay, I need to challenge myself. I need to test myself and stretch myself, which I think has really helped me. And I know others who were using that advice to grow and to progress.
Okay, great. So let's do something a bit more fun as well. I want to know all of your favourite media or advertising campaigns. Mihir, I think you had a one that already planned. So what's yours?
Yeah, well, I'd say if we're talking about campaigns that I've worked on, this has actually changed just in the last 24 hours because we won an award for a campaign just yesterday, a Thinkbox award for a campaign we did for Giovanni Rana, which is a stuffed pasta brand, which is really exciting. But before that, I would have said the launch of the Louise Banking Group 250 years ad. So that's when they brought back the Black Horse, and it was all about by your side for 250 years. It was a really powerful, emotive advertising campaign. My favourite advertising campaign ever is from my childhood, and it's all about, I'm a huge football fan, and it was about the Nike Scorpion football advert. So where they get all the best footballers and they play 3-on-3 in a cage, and they had the Elvis Presley, I can't remember what the song was, but the Elvis Presley song as a track, and it was just, as a kid, seeing all these stars playing together and doing all these tricks, it was amazing. That campaign has stuck with me forever.
Akama, how about you?
Yeah, I think I could name any number of Nike campaigns. I think exactly that Scorpion football one, the Joga Bonita one as well from my childhood. I really liked the Nike London campaign as well. I just think it like absolutely hit the zeitgeist on the head, like really captured it, and just things like I'm from Lewisham, so like seeing Morley's in a Nike ad and in the cinema is is amazing, and just really hits those small things that a lot of people might not necessarily pick up. So it's really well thought out. I think also as a consumer, one that did strike me as well, almost because it was very much a perfect execution of like a last mile campaign, which made me buy something which I had no intention of buying. But with the Skittles campaign they've done for Pride this month, where they've taken the rainbow off their packaging, so they've got completely all white packaging, and then they're giving, I think, $1 from every bag sold back to different associations which help promote LGBTQ plus communities.
That's a great choice. Yeah. Louise, how about you?
Without a doubt, it has to be stepping off the train at Waterloo and seeing the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man bursting through the floor for the Ghostbusters remake movie, and green slime hanging from the ceiling, from the cameras. I absolutely loved it. It just transported me back to loving that film as a kid. I absolutely loved it. That's definitely my favourite piece of comms activity that I've seen. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Okay,
great. And as a final question, what do you hope, or what do you think rather, but maybe hope as well, the future of media, the future of your individual sectors is going to look like? Louise, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, touching on the theme for today and some of our discussion points, I think I do want to bring it back to diversity. I think increasing that representation and inclusivity is just really important. There's lots of research out there that's showing that we will be better marketeers if we, represent the people that we're trying to reach. I think that's really important. I think that needs to be at the core of what we are working to, and that we continue to discuss and debate for genuine change where it doesn't exist.
Great. Mihir, how about you?
Yeah, I'm also going to say that a more diverse industry is what I'm really hoping for, and that is diversity at all levels. It's not just at entry level, particularly looking at kind of representation of ethnic minorities in the industry. It's amazing. Like I want to be in a stage in 5 years' time where I can work with the likes of Louise and Akama, and none of us have kind of dropped out of the industry because we feel that there's no further progression for people like us in the industry. I also think that in the TV world, which I've talked about a lot, I think it's a particularly bad issue, and there's still the mentality of it being a bit of an old boys club, as one of the more traditional medias. I would love to see that change. I'd love to be one of kind of the leaders of that change as well, and opening it up more to people like me, and maybe being a role model for people to see. But yeah, I hope the industry looks a lot more diverse, and as a result, we produce better work as an industry.
That's a great point. TV is not the only sector of this industry that can resemble an old boys club at times. Akama, how about you?
Yeah, and just going to echo the same, really. More diverse, more inclusive. I think in particular, obviously the industry, but certainly the output, and actually in many ways a lot of the medium as well. Like I know one of the areas that we look on is actually how can we make the ad experience itself more inclusive. So we've got a particular project we're working on, like identifying that you've got 1 billion people with a registered disability around the world, like 1 in 7 globally. A huge commercial barrier, but obviously work's been done to include disabled communities in advertising, in say like the Mars campaigns. They've gone, but actually the experience itself, because you rely a lot on your senses to engage with very traditional media currently, and there are a lot of emerging technologies that use gesture bases or facial gestures or haptic technologies to actually make the brand and the messaging more accessible as well. So I'd like to see a lot more of that come through.
Okay, that's great. It's been absolutely amazing talking to all of you today. I've really enjoyed this chat, and I wish you all the best for the future, and hopefully we'll all chat again soon. So see you guys soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.